Sup, dude? Within NBA history, there's been a plethora of dudes who've dominated by way of elite intelligence. LeBron, Magic, Tim Duncan, Kobe, drunk driving legend Jason Kidd, and the list goes on. It's impossible to say out of all of them who's the smartest, but a very strong case can be made for Chris Paul. The dude's like Lana Rhoades, his brain was elite, and he also had something inside of him, but not the same thing as Lana. Rondo had anger. This concoction of a grizzly bear-like temper and brains made his NBA career pretty crazy. First, let me give you a little backstory. As a kid, Rondo was a beast. At 4 years old, he learned how to ride a bike without training wheels, and when he started school, his brother, who was 5 years older than him, would teach him math way above his grade. He went so hard because he wanted to be the first one up to the board to solve the problem. He saw his classmates as competition and he wanted to destroy them. By his freshman year of high school, his efforts paid off, making it into a sophomore level AP geometry class. Though, in that class, he wouldn't do his homework. He would fall asleep a lot, and his coach, Doug Bibby, was the teacher. Because Rondo jacked off instead of paying attention, Bibby thought there was no way the dude wasn't cheating. So to prove his theory, he decided to give Rondo different tests than his classmates. But to Bibby's surprise, he did well on those too. He wasn't cheating, he was just different. His critical thinking skills were top notch, and they didn't just help with math. They also made him sick at Connect 4. His poor friends and family knew he would fuck them up whenever they played. He won pretty much every time, and if somehow someone else got lucky and won, he would beat them over and over again to assert his dominance. Of course, though his math and Connect 4 wizardry were dope, his brain was best on display with the rock in his hands. Standing at 6'1" with a jaw-dropping 6'9" wingspan and massive hands, the dude was a demigod at point. His weirdly giant arms allowed him to be a hound on defense, and on offense he was pretty much unguardable. During his senior year at Oak Hill, he averaged 21 points, 12 assists, and led his team to a perfect 38-0 record. He even had a game where he dished out 31 assists and another one where he scored 55. His accomplishments and wild potential earned him a scholarship to his hometown school, Louisville, but Kentucky had also extended him an offer, so he decided to go there. The way Kentucky coach Tubby Smith described Rondo was as the outlier in a classroom. He was the kid who was just so smart he needed different work from the rest. Because he was so smart, I bet if you asked him how dangerous the internet is, he'd probably say extremely. I don't know if you saw this, but AT&T revealed that over 73 million customer records, both existing and former customers, were released on the dark web. They recommend those affected use strong passwords, monitor account activity, and consider credit freezes or fraud alerts from credit bureaus. Well, the wonderful sponsor of today's video, Aura, does all this for me. And best of all, I don't have to download several different apps just because a company couldn't keep my data secure. If my info was compromised in the AT&T data breach, I wouldn't worry because Aura is always on doing the hard work of keeping me safe. Our extremely scary reality is anyone can go on one of those weird people finder sites, look up your name, and find all sorts of private information like your address. This can be prevented with Aura. They scour the internet identifying all personal information that's been made public and they delete it. Not only do they do that, but they also protect you from malware, monitor your credit and phone number, making sure it's not being handed out to robocallers. Getting all the online security features I need with just one subscription has been so helpful. So dude, if you're concerned about your personal information being out there, Aura is definitely the app for you. And I'm happy to let you know that they're hooking all my viewers up with a 2-week free trial. You can either let people continue to exploit and profit off your information, or you can go to aura.com/NBAGoober to start your 2-week free trial today. Link is in the description, and big thank you to Aura for sponsoring this video. Anywho, at Kentucky, Rondo impressed. He possessed everything NBA scouts looked for in a point guard and more. He was an elite defender, great rebounder, highly unselfish, fast as hell, and his ability to cut the game up limb by limb was Jeffrey Dahmer-esque. These traits made him arguably the best point guard prospect of the 2006 draft. He wasn't perfect though. His jump shot was ass, probably because it was awkward as hell shooting with Kawhi's hands and weirdly long arms, but his pros heavily outweighed his cons. Teams could teach a dude to shoot, but they couldn't teach a dude's arms longer. By the end of his sophomore year, his freaky arms had raked in an impressive 2.3 steals per game. When he played, the probability he got a steal was as likely as death and taxes. Being so talented, he decided to leave Kentucky after 2 years to put his name into the NBA draft. To nobody's surprise, he got picked. The Phoenix Suns took him at 21, but they traded him to Boston immediately. During the early to mid 2000s, the Celtics were cheeks. This was very unfortunate for their star Paul Pierce. He was entering his 9th year, and his chances of winning winning a ring looked grim. Even more so for the 2006-7 season. His help was Tony Allen, Al Jefferson, Wally Szczerbiak, and rookie Rondo. They weren't exactly the most star-studded squad. Being a rookie, Rondo was exiled to the bench, forced to battle for minutes with Sebastian Telfair and Delonte West. Through about 75% of the season, he stayed in that bench role, playing around 20 minutes a night. His field goal percentage was abysmal, hitting below 40% of his shots, and his three ball was non-existent, but everyone figured this was gonna happen. Dude couldn't shoot in college either. What was important was his defense, rebounding, and playmaking had translated. It wasn't perfect, but through 55 games, he averaged 3 assists, 3 rebounds, and 1.5 steals. Nothing crazy, but it clearly impressed Doc Rivers, because from game 56 on, his role greatly increased. He was now averaging 34 minutes a night. During his increased time on the court, he proved to Boston he was their guy. Through his final 23 games as a rookie, he improved his scoring to 10 points a night while shooting 47% from the field to go along with 5 assists, 5 rebounds, and 2 steals. He was the jack of pretty much all trades. His three ball was still shit, but nobody's perfect, man. Although individually he had a solid year, the team finished with 24 wins and 58 losses. Paul Pierce didn't know if he'd even be a Celtic much longer. The team was full of young guys, meanwhile Paul was 29. He thought maybe he wasn't in the team's future plans, but what he didn't realize was that all-time white guy Danny Ainge had a couple tricks up his sleeve. He pulled the first out on the day of the 2007 NBA draft. In the morning, Ainge was nearing a deal with Sam Presti involving the Celtics' Wally Szczerbiak as well as their number 5 pick in exchange for Seattle's Ray Allen. That was until Presti said he needed Rondo in the deal, which Ainge refused, so it went cold for several hours. Then Presti called back and said he was chill with Delonte West instead. They agreed, and Paul Pierce couldn't have been happier. He now had Walter, the all-star sharpshooter, fresh off averaging 26 points a night. And the cherry on top was they got a second-round pick as well, which turned into the legendary Big Baby Glenn Davis. Ainge's second trick came to fruition thanks to his close friendship with Kevin McHale, vice president of basketball operations for the Minnesota Timberwolves. They sucked and wanted to go in a different direction, which meant KG was on the trade block. So during the 2007 Summer League in Las Vegas, Ainge harassed McHale day in, day out with trade proposals. McHale was interested, but he wanted a big bang for his buck. It took over 3 weeks of talking every day, up to 5 times a day, for them to finally come to an agreement. Ainge settled on trading young post god Al Jefferson, nine-finger legend Gerald Green, Theo Ratliff, Sebastian Telfair, Ryan Gomez, and 2 first-round picks in exchange for the big ticket. Boston went from being a joke to the most feared team in the league. And with Delonte and Sebastian gone, Rondo is now the clear-cut starting point guard. It was all sunshine and rainbows after that. The core 4 and their solid supporting cast bent the league over and went to town, winning 66 games with just 16 losses. It was the greatest turnaround in NBA history, improving on their prior season by 42 wins. They were really good offensively, but they also had one of the greatest defenses ever. Opponents were in hell versus them. They held teams to just 90 points on average. Garnett was the team's defensive captain, but Rondo was a close second. The little long-armed freak wreaked havoc on the opposition, constantly disrupting passing lanes and sticking to his man like glue. If there was an all-defensive third team that year, he would have been on it. Along with that, he deepened his bag offensively by developing a pretty solid in-between jumper to go along with his top-tier playmaking and penetrating. While everything was fine and dandy so far, they were about to run into a problem. The 37-win Atlanta Hawks, led by Joe Johnson, Josh Smith, and rookie Al Horford. That big three somehow took the Celtics' big 3 to 7 games. I don't know why, but Phillips Arena had them shook. When they got back home to Boston for Game 7, they clamped the Hawks, winning by 30, which was good, but that series should have been over and at most a gentleman's sweep. Nevertheless, they moved on to the semifinals where they faced off against 23-year-old LeBron James. He was the whole team. Surely the Celtics' 66-win God Squad could make light work of him. Nope, LeBron dragged them to 7. And in the series deciding game, he dropped 45, nearly sending them to Cancun. But Paul Pierce matched his 40 bomb and willed the Celtics to the 5-point win. With 14 games behind them, they were on pace to play the most games in the playoffs ever. Luckily, the conference finals against the Pistons didn't go to 7. They kept it short and sweet, winning in 6, moving on to face the Lakers. Although the journey was a stressful one, they kinda dominated in the finals. They got up 3-1, then LA kept themselves alive by winning Game 5, but they probably wish they would have just lost that one, because in Game 6, Boston abused them in a humiliating 40-point ass beating. An integral reason for the destruction was none other than 21-year-old Rajon Rondo. He dropped 21 points, 6 steals, 7 rebounds, 8 assists, and just 1 turnover. This performance, along with starring scoring in his role throughout the entire playoffs solidified him as one of the league's top guards. Unfortunately though, after this, shit hit the fan. They probably would have repeated as champs the next year, but Garnett hurt his right knee. Then in 2010, they met the Lakers in the finals again, but Big Perk got injured in Game 6. That may not seem to be too devastating, but it proved to be, because in Game 7, LA manhandled Boston on the boards and put them away. Their quote-unquote dynasty was cooked. By this point, Rondo had improved a ton since 2008. When KG got injured in 2009, he broke out, nearly averaging a triple-double in the playoffs, and in 2010, he became an all-star, seeing his role get bigger more and more each day. Despite his improvements, the Big Three were only getting older, and to make matters worse, the Heat formed their own Big Three. Boston didn't realize it, but this was the beginning of their end. The Heatles destroyed them in the 2011 playoffs, and in the 2012 playoffs, they met again. Boston actually led 3-2, but LeBron did that devious glare and it was all over. The Celtics were officially done for, and they went out in flames. Ray Allen left and signed with Miami. A big reason for his decision was of course to win, but also Rajon Rondo. Rondo was good at math, but bad with people, and one of the people he did not get along with was Ray Allen. Starting back in 2009, Rondo had issues with the Celtics front office, which had him and Allen almost traded to Phoenix in a deal centered around Amari Stoudemire. Because of this, Allen told Rondo to work it out with Ainge so they wouldn't be traded, but Rondo took it as Allen saying this is all your fault. During a team meeting in 2011, this was revealed after Rondo told everyone he carried them to the 2008 championship. Everyone called BS to that statement in synchronization, and Rondo was like, "You all hate me." To which Ray responded saying they never did. Then Rondo said, "You did. You said I was the reason we were going to be traded." That same year, there was a film session after Game 2 against Miami where Rondo turned his chair around to stare at the lockers instead of watching film. Then when Doc told him to watch, he said fuck that film and chucked a water bottle at the screen, breaking it. About a year later, during a game against Indiana, Rondo and Allen got into a shouting match in the locker room. Rondo claimed Allen was jealous of him, and when Allen responded that Rondo needed to stop bullshitting everyone, Rondo told him, "I'm gonna get your ass out of here this summer." Later on the plane, Allen wanted to settle the beef, but Rondo gave him the cold shoulder, saying, "I got 11 more games to play with you, and that's it." Because of his experience as a Celtic, Allen left for Miami, and Boston had to think about a rebuild. Rondo lasted as a Celtic for just 2 more seasons, then he got shipped to Dallas where all hell broke loose. He and coach Rick Carlisle were not very fond of each other, which led to him getting benched in the playoffs. From that point on, he had trouble finding a home, bouncing around from Sacramento, Chicago, and New Orleans. He was by no means bad. He led the league in assists per game in Sacramento and during the 2018 playoffs. But those teams just weren't good, so it was a lot of losing. And Rondo isn't a big fan of losing, so eventually he made his way to LA. It was there where he would go on to try to punch himself and end his career on a bang, winning another ring. He may have been 33 and a little bit washed up, but he and his brain were a huge reason why the Lakers were able to win it all. Throughout the dude's career, his biggest strength was also his biggest weakness. He knew he was super smart, and that got in the way. It hurt him and others around him quite a bit, but that was just who he was. He has 2 more rings than 3, so he's probably doing just fine. Another guy who's doing just fine is Dirk Nowitzki, but once upon a time he was under harsh scrutiny and labeled a playoff bum. Click here to watch the video I made on him. Thanks for watching this one. Hope you enjoyed. Bye, dude.